Board of Trustees Facility Committee. And I'm going to ask if you would call the roll.
Sure. Trustee Martin?
Here.
Trustee Wong?
Here.
Trustee Chen Lao? Here. Student Trustee Bradley?
Okay, we have public comment on non-agenda items. We have Mr. Todd Jones. Can we go first?
Sure.
You have 3 minutes.
Good evening. On February 19th, I published an op-ed in Pasadena Now where I covered many issues with the current bond measure spending. I have one overarching question. Will the decisions you make on how bond proceeds are spent reflect what the voters had in mind when they approved the $565 million bond? Likely to have influenced the voters was this flyer. It promised them to fix deteriorating roofs, plumbing and electrical systems, remove asbestos and lead pipes, and retrofit older buildings to make them earthquake safe. That's just to name a few. But not anywhere the demolition of buildings. So when the demolitions begin, it will seem like a bait and switch. This will lead to erosion of public trust, and then who knows when the public will approve another bond. Obviously, the public wants you to be thoughtful with the costs and the plans. Hopefully by now you've gotten data to answer questions from that prior meeting about the W building. For example, the cost to retrofit versus demolish and construct a larger academic building there. By now you've surely read the 2021 seismic report that recommends just a handful of suggested retrofit remedies like voluntary seismic upgrade, not an escalated demolition, such as adding shotcrete to 18 feet of an exterior wall, or adding carbon fiber cladding to just 6 pillars around the southeast corner of the building. At the November walkthrough, it seemed to me that the administrators aimed to condemn the building from the jump, just to influence you, by showing you the scary bits and not offering much more than that. The building is planned to be replaced in 2028, with the swing space bungalows going onto the tennis courts. Why the sudden speed of taking it offline? What are you using to justify the wholesale inconvenience of students and staff? I trust you have each seen the rest of the W building because most of its issues have defined remedies that are just overdue. Finally, we saw this just a few meetings back. It was the areas of spend, where the district plans to spend $204 million of the $565 million on outside consultants for project management and design. That equals 62% of the total construction costs, these three, and that are budgeted for the bond. That's just for project management and design. In the 2010 bond, it amounted to just 2.7% for project management. Please answer why. Professional project management and design firms charge just a few percent. Here again, you will lose public trust if they see these costs have been inflated by nearly a factor of 10. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Professor Melissa Michaels.
I have some similar concerns. When this body came to the W building last November, you were shown 3 spaces. I asked about the seismic issues, but was shut down, and then you all left. Did you see the large hardwood floor studio where tap students practice? Or the large outside patio leading out from there that could be used for table tennis, fencing, dance practice, sunset yoga, or spinning? Did you visit the faculty office spaces or the recently renovated Veterans Center, the faculty dressing rooms and lockers, or the female student lockers? No. So faculty have been told to pack up and leave because the building will be taken offline, but that affects our students, whether they're in fencing club or taking dance classes, yoga classes, or of course swimming. What is the defined amount or timeline to rebuild the generic academic building that's in the facility master plan to be built on top of the W in the pool? Until today, there's no plan, timeline, or budgeting being discussed, which is in the bond language that voters approved. So if there's no money or plan lined up for W, don't demolish it early just to put long-term temporary bungalows there. Dance instructors say students take technique classes in the specialized studios upstairs, and the proposed replacement rooms in GM doesn't pass muster. Too small, low ceilings, no wall-to-ceiling storage like in W. Yoga was put in Harbison Hall, but the professors say students prefer W, so they're back in W. A coach has said, why can't we have a space for students just to exercise and get fit? The only ways for them to do that is to enroll in a class. Faculty and staff could do the same and participate in collegiate teams for the more camaraderie on this campus. Yes, the building was originally built in 1961 for fitness and movement. Back then, that was valued, but that doesn't mean the building is obsolete. I'm not saying leave it as it is. Now, with bond money, W is in need of a refresh, but it's not red tagged and demolition isn't necessary. The seismic report that I've seen also says it just needs 3 simple retrofits and some cosmetic updates. If the gym isn't necessary as a gym, then repurpose it, or build a second floor in there, or demolish that area only. That would save a great deal of funds and could be used for other mega projects on campus. We believe if it's broken, just fix it, not demolish it, especially when PCC has been given the funds to do that exact thing. City of Alhambra resurfaced 2 pools for $260,000 at parks. So in general, I just want to point out that institutional barriers like this disruption to our students' learning and their education will send them to other colleges, lowering our enrollment even more. Students have told me personally they will go elsewhere, and that makes me sad. So I wanted to bring that up to you. And just because my colleagues aren't here, it doesn't mean they don't have opinions. Thank you.
Thank you. Approval of the minutes of January 31st, 2024. I think we all have those copies there. Is there
So moved.
a second? Because I think you were on
I
the
know someone
line,
abstained.
so you're technically, though you were in the know,
Wasn't,
you're not in the.
right.
So, move to second, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Abstain? Abstain, okay. Facility strategic plan refresh update.
Hello.
So we have our colleagues here from HGA who've been working really diligently with the district on a variety of different factors to consider sort of the refresh of the FMP in total. Lots of things that they're going to kind of cover today in terms of the data that you all asked.
Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Sorry.
I put a star, but I put it by the wrong one.
Oh,
So for public comment on this topic, and we always let public comment go first.
Yes.
Sorry.
And it's supposed to be B1, not B2, and I'm so, I
You'll get a refresh
apologize, and you did that so politely. So, Mr. Tarjones, please.
All right. Hello again. I'd like to point out that there is no document posted online regarding the refresh update for this meeting. And I can't be sure if you're looking at something that's unavailable to me.
I don't think we
Is there
are.
some- oh, well.
Okay.
Okay, well, previously at this meeting, VP Jones said that the 2020 master plan depicted about $1 billion of construction projects total. That means not all projects will be constructed with the 565, even though they've been promised to the public in the bond language. She also said that it had not conceptualized the Rosemead campus. Refresh is an understatement to what needs to be done to the PCC's master plan. 2020 was a pre-pandemic master plan. 2024 has to be the post-pandemic master plan, not just a refresh. The post-pandemic PCC has a Rosemead campus, so the post-pandemic master plan should prioritize it. The update should also accommodate the substantial changes that the pandemic has had on us socially and technologically, such as changes in actual enrollment, not the projected enrollment, changes in person-to-person services and instruction that might now be done online, Zoom classes, and how about have Wi-Fi hotspots for Zoomers on campus, in their cars, or at their homes. Classrooms are hardly full. In fact, many are empty throughout the day. What kind of message will it send to the public that PCC is demolishing perfectly good buildings that students use today to achieve their scholastic goals for constructing shiny new buildings which would be for a nearly empty campus? Most impressive and Sustainable could be PCC's creative and actual refreshing of the master plan by rehabbing and rethinking and repurposing aging buildings as what was promised to the public, not a costly and long drawn out campaign of demolition and reconstruction. The pandemic really pulled a number on us all, and it made us shift and pivot to a lot of things. I hope PCC is poised to do the same in its refresh.
Thank you. Okay.
I'd like to welcome our architects, our guests who have really lived on this campus for many years related to not only the original facilities master plan, but also our refresh update that was requested by a board of trustees related to really questions that you all had around enrollment and the ways that we sort of think through the programs that are growing and contracting and then re-envision and add to and enhance the plan that's currently in place. So I'm going to let Joe and Stacy introduce themselves, and then we'll just pop over to some slides that they prepared.
Thank you. Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm Joe Sion. I'm Associate Vice President with HGA Architects. We're located in Santa Monica as our local office.
Hi everyone, I'm Stacy Clark. I'm working with Joe on this project. I'm a project architect.
And what we prepared today is really an initial look at what we are embarking on with this. I think it's been coined here as a refresh. We call it really an update. I guess it's a refresh update. Identified. But it is an update. It is really looking at what was planned and documented back in 2020. And it really is prompted by what has happened over the last 4 years, which is significant for not only this college, but colleges across the country and really everywhere. So we are taking an approach to...
Yep.
Yeah, that's great. We are taking an approach to this project, and we'll go through this in brief. This is really, we saw this as being kind of a briefing of what we're doing at this point, and we just started, we really just started this process, so we're just starting into it. We are going to show you a schedule that we have outlined, and we're going to, we have certain touch points again with the board to keep the board updated over the next couple of months. So maybe you can go to the first slide. So the agenda that we put together for today is kind of a short presentation. We just want to look back at the 2020 Facilities Master Plan, just refresh everyone's memory on what, where did we end up? What was that plan about? We then are going to show you a description of what we understand the scope is at this point for this update that we're working on. We'll talk a little bit about our process and what that includes. Then we'll cover the next steps and the milestones, and then we'd be happy to answer any questions and address any comments that you'll have. Okay. So thank you. So this is the master plan description from the 2020 Facilities Master Plan. And without going into a lot of detail on it, this is all color coded. So the new buildings are identified in orange, and this includes the Serafian building, because at the time we did this, so the old Serafian building was still there. So that has changed over time. But the orange buildings, or what's depicted in orange here, identifies the new buildings on campus. The blue identifies what is planned to be renovated, and the yellow really identifies parking, proposed parking as part of that facility master plan that we did back then. And those were some improvements to parking areas. So that just gives you the kind of an overview. One of the major moves that we had in this plan was the idea to move the swimming pool to the southeast corner of the campus. And that was done as a thought about, first off, the addressing the condition of the existing pool, but also perhaps making that a community asset. where the community would be able to participate and use the swimming pool like we've seen on some other college campuses. Santa Monica College, for example, has a big swimming pool community program there, but that was an idea at the time. Now I think we're going to shift, and Stacy's going to talk a little bit about
Yeah, so this is just a very quick diagram kind of showing what we understand the initial scope to be like. And of course, we're still in the process. We're gonna look at all the data that we're given, such as enrollment and kind of the various items that this gentleman kind of touched on, as in the change with the pandemic and the head count and all various things and utilization, all of that data, as well as taking into account when we're talking with the college leadership and understanding what type of programs are growing on the campus. So that's kind of on the side. And as we're doing that sort of investigation work, we're investigating to see how that would support this initial scope. And just a quick summary of what you see here, we're taking a look at some of the existing building, such as the R building and the W building, looking at the implication between replacing versus renovating those existing buildings, and we're looking at it holistically from cost perspective, sustainability, schedule, program needs, etc. And taking a look at some of the parking, because we understand that certain, like the parking structure is not desired, so that's, we're taking a look closely at that, and also making sure that there is enough parking to support the campus. Additionally, we are moving the pool back to its existing location, as well as the Lancers Pass, and we're looking at how that would affect the configuration of the academic building that's in that location. And as I mentioned, some of the programs we've heard from college leadership is growing, such as health sciences, the CTE program, the culinary and hospitality program, so kind of looking at that in conjunction of where they would go on the various campuses. And then also looking into a community building that is at the southeast edge of campus, and also looking at sustainability updates such as EV charging and also photovoltaic arrays. And
May
if
I
we-
interrupt you for a
Yes.
second, just so that I'm following this? From my recollection, and I've aged since 2020, so my memory may not be great. So there was a education master plan, you know, that accompanied the facilities master plan. So has the education master plan changed as well, or is it only the facilities master plan
That's
that?
Good question. So currently, Dr. Ramirez is leading the strategic plan update process for the college alongside this work. So that team is currently sort of building out the plans around how sort of the community, and you know, where are the areas that they're going to look to update, which are similar, which we've taken feedback from them in terms of the intersections, in terms of the growth of programs, and where they're thinking about that the strategic master plan, which is formerly known as the EMP, is now called the strategic master plan. That work is helping to inform this initial update scope, because we've met with Laura and her deans now twice to sort of gather that data, and so again, that's informing this process. So that work is ongoing, and you all.
So it's in tandem.
Correct.
Okay, great, thank you.
And one good example is what was formerly identified as a STEM building is now determined that it's really health sciences is where the growth in the need is. So
Right.
it's kind of pivoting a little bit to address those updates.
Thank you.
And then in addition to looking at the Colorado campus, we're also looking at the Foothill, Rosemead, and also the Northwest campus. And we understand, you know, Rosemead is being located to a new site, so we're taking that into account.
just to give you a brief overview of our schedule, and the we are here mark of where we are in the process. So we're still in our data collection and analysis phase of this project. So we have, as Ken has mentioned, met with academic leadership twice now. We've requested and received a lot of information, so we're starting to sort through that information and analyze it. And it really is to look at what is the enrollment now and what is the growth projection to align it correctly with the facilities, the physical facilities.
They've also shared, just since I was in those conversations, they also shared the percentages at which they're scheduling in-person versus online classes. So what, at that point, they are giving us percentages, breakdowns by sort of overall how they plan their in-person programs based on the student demand pieces. So they've also given us that data to kind of consider as an analysis piece.
So we then, from here we go into a recommendations phase of this project where we really start mapping out locations and some adjustments or recommended adjustments to the facilities master plan. We then will produce a draft and then ultimately the final document, the update document, which we would imagine is an amendment report, in a small format.
So the recommendations are recommendations from you all based on all this data collection.
Correct.
And then the draft will be created from what? From the feedback to the recommendations, or where's the draft?
Maybe the next slide is
Okay,
going to answer
okay.
this question,
Yep.
or the next two slides.
Yeah. So this is a little bit more descriptive of our process. So our initial update scope discussion includes the educational goals and vision, and that's what we're talking about in tandem with the EMP or the strategic plan. We're also talking about the types of instruction, the delivery of instruction, whether it be hybrid, in person, or online only, and taking that into account. Looking at the enrollment updates and taking that in consideration of everything. Sustainability updates, parking updates, and then the phase and priorities and swing space, how it's all going to work is kind of our initial collection of information. Then we go into analysis, which we take that information and produce space needs projections, and it's a complicated. We have someone in our staff who, and she's not here this evening, but she's an expert in doing that, to actually take the enrollment figures and the FTES and translate that to space needs, and then check against what we are recommending in terms of space growth for the campus, and make sure it's in alignment. We are looking at this at a 5 to 10 year horizon for looking that far out. And as you may know, the master plan really likes to look far out in general. It doesn't mean that it has to be implemented. It's kind of a roadmap, right? And there will be a decision by the college grade at some point to, which projects move ahead, or priority projects. But that will all be included in the final, or in the draft and the final.
Would you say that it's almost difficult to project 10 years out because there's such changes to what the landscape is, and when you're thinking about space need projections, you're also looking at both the faculty, staff, and students, right?
Correct.
So it's all three constituent.
Correct, yeah. And so usually what we've seen is an update is usually recommended every 5 years, because that's enough time. And we're pretty much at that point now, right? We're almost at the 5-year mark. Of course, this has been kind of unprecedented in terms of what has happened over the last 4 or 5 years. But usually what we see is a 5-year update. It's usually the right time to reassess and look what is the plan still current? Are there changes? Are there adjustments needed? So even though we may be looking 10 years out, it's really kind of a 5-year picture that we're focused on, I would say. if that makes sense. A couple of the other things that we will end up doing is developing sustainability strategies, and then the parking, to reanalyze the parking based on the enrollment and look at figures, because we did that previously, so it's kind of an update to those figures. Are the student counts still in line with what we projected the need of parking to be on campus? And I think there were some other strategies that were recommended back at that time. We'll look at those again and if needed, update those.
We've also shared those resolutions on the electric vehicle charging pieces, as well as the carbon neutral resolution, so that they're aware of those commitments.
I have a question. So, as you know from the Rosemead Council meeting, that was very gracious of you to show up, they want a bigger, more robust campus, and we have hopes that there's good things coming that we can do that. I was just curious if a larger Rosemead alleviates any pressures on the main campus. I guess what I'm asking is, it was one size, and if it's another size, does that shift enrollment, or is it just add enrollment?
Well, yeah, I think so we've requested and I think we've received a projected enrollment for Rosemead, and we're basing things on that information that we've received. We have to be careful about not overbuilding, by state chancellor's office guidelines and such. So we have to look at all of that and make sure it's within the boundaries of not overbuilding Rosemead. As far as taking pressure off, I know that there is, and we've talked about the synergies between the two campuses, shuttles that would facilitate students moving back and forth, that may take some of the pressure off, but I don't know exactly if it, how that would work. One question would be, with the prior Rosemead facility, was there a witness of pressure being alleviated from the main campus at that time? Might be a good clue, because I think that the community that would be enrolled in courses at Rosemead would be the same that were there previously or close to it, as a measure.
Yeah, I think it's like comparing a little bit apples to oranges, because the previous Rosemead location. So I think the answer to that is, I think the data will help us sort of inform that. If I was a betting, I'd say a little bit, because the new facilities is intended to also have science labs and other sorts of pieces that were never at the original leased location. And so there has always been sort of this really difficult push on the types of classrooms that were available there at that point to what we can really imagine that can happen in a new facility that is built from the ground up, intentional, related to academic programming that might be specific to particular areas. So, for example, right, there's been a recommended shift in terms of the building east of Serafi to be more health sciences and dental, right? Those are fields that are growing by leaps and bounds. This campus currently can't sustain that. So instead of talking about a STEM building, there's some intentional action under Dr. Ramirez's leadership to sort of say, well, let's kind of maybe reimagine that building. A very similar process is happening related to Rosemead about some recommendations in terms of what fields and what the focus area is going to be for that campus, that our academic deans are helping to sort of brainstorm through, to present, to allow really HGA to present to our board and other campus constituents. This is what we're imagining there, which may take some off, but again, our ideal is for growth, right? And so,
It's a little
it's-
win-win, because
it is.
if it alleviates,
Yeah.
then you might be able to shift a little money.
correct,
But what you really hope for is the growth.
Correct.
Which right now in the mode of the community colleges.
correct. So while there might be a little bit, I mean, our intention is to continue to grow this campus's infrastructure to support the growing programmatic needs on this campus, as well as sort of reimagine what's possible in a community that we've not really tapped, you know, to its full potential.
Given your clients, I'm sure in the education space, when you look at space needs projections or this type of building of new campuses, do you see a certain growth pattern when you have new buildings or refreshed buildings that you see the drop? And the reason I ask is that in the last conference for the California community colleges, the call to action was to bring colleges to the community. It wasn't come to the community college. So there's a bit of a tension in terms of philosophy around that. I just wanted to hear from you, from your experience,
Yeah, I think we're seeing, we're just starting to see changes, I'll say. There's no evidence or data really that supports if you build it, it will come.
yeah,
or-
field of dreams,
Right,
right? Yeah.
right, exactly.
Mhm.
But there, for a while, and as what we've learned from the pandemic, is that there is a more, even not only for education, but even in the workplace, that there is more reliance on technology for some type of hybrid learning or telecommuting or whatever. I mean, we do it in our office. I think it has changed the world, the way the world works. So taking that into account, we are seeing facilities that are investing in infrastructure to facilitate that kind of, whether it's dual or hybrid learning, even recording studios. We have one client college here in Southern California that is investing in recording areas to record courses, because then they become available, and they've asked for a green screen and things like that, and very outfitted, robust technology to accommodate that. So that's what we're kind of seeing, that everybody is shifting to some type of online, whether it's hybrid or not. The discussions that we've had with the academic leadership here is obviously some of the courses have to be in person, the labs, things like that. Some of the growing departments, such as the construction technology, and there's interest in solar power, education. Those things are really hands-on, so I don't know if maybe it's part lecture that's done online, and then labs are done in person or something like that. That's kind of what we're working through. So, unfortunately, we don't have any, real evidence yet.
But I appreciate.
You guys are on the forefront of doing this. So, one other thing I was going to point out here, as part of our deliverable, we will be producing cost models. So what we develop as a plan, or recommended plan, we would be providing some rough order of magnitude cost estimates to go along with that. And that's obviously based on, a phasing or a sequencing of projects. Candace, I didn't ask you if we were limited on time here. Okay. Do you want to talk to the schedule, the next steps?
I guess I just want to go back to see if we answered your question.
Yeah, we did, thank you.
Okay, so for the next steps and the upcoming milestones, so here we are today, giving an update on our progress thus far, and then we're still going to meet with the academics folks as well as facilities to discuss some of the items that Joe kind of pointed out. And then at the same time, we're also making progress on this FMP refresh update effort. And there will be meetings with the shared governance. And then in April, we'll be providing another update to the subcommittee as well as to the board meeting. And then there will be community outreach to make sure we're on track, aligned, make sure we're taking in community feedback. And then in May, we'll present a draft of the FMP update to the subcommittee as well as the board. And then after that, we will be finalizing this amended report.
My only, great, thank you. There will be no subcommittee
Okay,
in April
okay.
and in May,
Oh, okay.
until May 15th, when whoever is appointing, that's my only,
Well, you know what, I wanted to bring this up too, but not here, but at another meeting, is that because commencement has now moved to June, our May meeting with the students should really move back too, because the calendar used to be that they were right after right around the same thing, so really.
Important topic for another meeting,
Yes.
at another time.
Yes, but I, just so that you know the dates, or commencement is now in June,
Okay.
so.
We can always give the board the April 10th meeting, just an
Yeah.
the update.
April
right?
9th subcommittee might be a little problem.
So we
Well-
could do that.
You could still do it, because you two would still
we could.
be here
I,
if you wanted to.
what I would recommend is that at some point, and this is not, I'm just, thinking out loud, is that we have 2 new trustees. And so that we're all on the same page, that you don't have to rehash this again, is that maybe we just do an information session.
Like a study session at the
April
April
10th.
At the
10th
April
meeting.
10th meeting.
We can frame that as the study session for that. Another opportunity is we often, when we're onboarding new trustees, we often reach out right before and give, we did something similar just so that the new trustees don't walk in and sort of feel like, oh my goodness. That's the other reason why we framed that April meeting as just an update. We didn't want to sort of push on decisions or
Right.
needing to like, oh, you have to weigh into something that you're just getting updated on, which is what helped to extend the timeline a bit. But we can definitely frame the April 10th as a study session for our Board of Trustees. And then we can continue from the staff perspective to bring up our new trustees, up to speed between meetings as well.
And it really doesn't need to be a long information session. It could just be 10, 15 minutes, just so that there's a high level.
For the April 10th study session, okay.
We were anticipating for that, the April 9th, 10th, we would have the analysis pretty much
Oh,
done
that'd be
at that
great.
point.
Yeah,
So we would have some numbers to share and things like that.
okay, that'd be great.
So maybe, I don't know if that's in alignment
That's fine.
with what you,
I
It's
think
a
that
good
makes sense.
study session item framed like that.
This is a good one. And I think it makes sense too, because this is a significant, piece of what we're doing. So having the full board apprised earlier on, so they can think about it. So when the final thing comes, I guess sometime in June or something, they're not surprised.
There's also a portion of the new trustee orientation that focuses on this as well.
Okay. Anything else?
I think that is it for our part. If there's any other questions, we'd be happy to, yes.
All right.
I just have a really random question. I remember we've had the discussion about the pool, and I just can't remember why exactly was the corner problematic. It was because of community. Was it that?
I think there was we took 2 sort of large feedback areas. One was community feedback. The second was there was concern about traffic and parking related to both Bonnie and Del Mar right at that corner. The community feedback in terms of the neighbors in the neighborhood were concerned about sound
Yeah.
and things. They tend to be pretty particular about that Del Mar side. Not to say that that completely drove. I mean, there were some other traffic sort of considerations that needed to be considered. And then the last piece, I think, is as they continue to work through this project, the expense of moving the
Yeah.
pool is astronomical. I mean, it's a good size. And so there's some thought that then, well, if we could reallocate those funds to other work that needs to happen, whether it's Rosemead pieces, whether it's remediation of some other areas as they're working through, particularly the program growth areas, because those were never envisioned, is that where really the funds should be sort of expended versus a move of a pool that may not get us the instructional activities that we're looking for. So they're going to include that in their analysis.
Well, the way that I think we have been looking at this is that, you know, this was done in 2020, and we're almost 4.5 years out. And part of this is how can we ensure that we're not in this analysis paralysis kind of state where we're going to analyze this for another 2 years, and then by the time we start building, it's 2028, you know?
Right.
And so if there's any way that we can help expedite or facilitate this in a way where we can actually see some movement along this, that would be really helpful.
Right. Yeah, that's often the case with long planning projects. Sometimes what we refer to as quick start projects help just kind of cover the gap so everyone sees things that are happening even though they may be small. So we can take that into account, make some recommendations on what those quick start things may be.
Right. No, I would really appreciate that because I know that there's some philosophical differences with some of the big items that we're talking about. But at the same time, just because we're debating on the big items doesn't mean that everything else has to stop.
Right. Yeah, we're not updating everything in the former facilities master plan. So some of that is still valid. And
Things like mirror pools, right? I mean, things like sex and auditorium refresh. You know, so there are pieces that continue to work in conjunction at the same time. So to your point, that we're not sort of like, okay, we're at a standstill. We certainly don't want that, but there are some key smaller projects that I think we're continuing to make some good momentum on.
right. Another one that comes to mind is there was a good portion in the 2020 FMP identifying wayfinding on campus
Oh, yes.
and branding,
Yeah,
right?
yes.
And that's something that is very visible to everybody, right?
Right.
When you start seeing it. It was really building on what the college started with the I think it was called.
Come do dream.
Right. It was really taking that idea and extending it through the campus. So building signage and wayfinding signage, and not expensive to implement, but effective, and people start seeing improvement.
Yeah.
Right?
And I certainly do know that, you know, Alex and his team, along with Dr. Gomez's direction, are really looking at the centennial, and maybe some of this can be applied during the centennial, so that it does show that we're entering into a new century, the type of branding that we're going to see. Thank you.
I think that takes us to upcoming measure PCC contracts.
Facilities construction?
Did I skip something? Facility construction update, you're right,
No,
sorry.
it's okay.
One behind. Or ahead.
So we don't want to sort of, we'll cover Serafian, and then just if there are questions related to some of the other, coming projects on campus, we can kind of walk through those. But Richard wants to give a quick update on our Serafian.
Thank you. Good evening. Wow, there was a lot of things that came up that you guys teed up that I'd like to take a swing at, but we'll stay on track here with Serafian. In regards to the Serafian project, all levels work continues on interior finishes. The exterior We're starting to get the final coat on the EFIS system, and you'll start to see some of the safety screening is coming down. It's already down on the west elevation and the east elevation and the north elevation. It's starting so around the building, they're starting, the construction part of it is finished, and that safety netting is starting to come down, so you can start to see the building behind all the netting and scaffolding. We are still working through some details and installations on the window components and to get the building dried in. We are currently experiencing roughly 202 days of delay. This is in conjunction with supply chain issues that we experienced, some contractor substitutions, and working out some details on some code-related items on construction of the building. So we are working diligently with the PCL staff, management team, to establish milestones in an effort to achieve a substantial completion in the October-November timeframe, so that we can have a spring occupancy for academic scheduling. I'll pause there and see if there's questions on Seraphin. Yes.
So I know on our agenda tomorrow, it's still Seraphin related, so it's still on this agenda, but if we are on one of the items is to move the final completion date to 2025. So moving that to 2025, does that mean that, can you just walk me through the dates, because it just kind of gets jumbled. The 202 days sounds like a lot, but then moving substantial completion to October 22 doesn't seem as big of a jump as the last, so.
Yeah, so the way this contract's worded is you have a substantial completion date and then you have a final completion date of the contract. So there's a bunch of float in there. And so what the contractor looks at is there is time after substantial completion to finish punch list items, provide deliverables, warranties, training, and get us going through the DSA certification project. So the contract may continue to go into 2025 it's about 60 days of float, but the physical completion we're targeting, the substantial completion we're targeting for that late October, early November date. So we can occupy what we call beneficial occupancy.
Yeah.
We can actually occupy the building. That just starts your warranty period, while contractually we're closing out with the contractor.
That's great, thank you.
Any others, Seraphin, questions?
Is there a time where it'd be appropriate for us to check out the progress? Like,
You have your hard hat, do you have your hard hat?
No, well, I know, but I don't. But I mean, because
Yes.
I remember when they did the top off, there was supposed to be, and then there was a storm, and then so we didn't get to actually see them. So yeah.
Yeah, Foundation has reached out to us. Unfortunately, with some of the delays that are going on, it is pretty precarious for a layperson to walk through there. We're getting indications that May. So we already talked about with Foundation of scheduling May hard hat tours. We would, of course, that's still the contractor site, so we have to work through. There'd be a quick safety training. There would be certain personal protective equipment you'd have to have, hard toe shoes and hard hat, safety glasses, etc. Some of that we would provide. And then it would be a guided tour. It's not just a freelance, we get to walk up, run all over the building. But it would be a guided tour. By then in May, we would have the interior service elevator actually working. So right now, all we have is the stairwells, which are actually, the last time I was in it, we are full of scaffolding, so you've got to limbo around to get up the floors. And then there's the exterior man lift. So it will be a little bit more convenient when the service elevator is up and running on the interior, because as soon as that's done, they will actually take down the exterior man lift so we can complete the south side.
Great.
So May.
Perfect. Thank you.
So probably start sending out polls to the trustees and, just sort of thinking through date options that as we get closer there, and we know that you guys get hooked up really quickly.
Thank you.
So non-Seraphin.
Non-Seraphin.
Long list of things here.
Yes.
Yeah, so, yes, there is a long list of things here, and some of these items are, as Joe had brought up, the fast track or easy swing projects that are associated, that we're using bond, well, it could be dual funded from general fund and bond funding on some of these projects to get a kickstart on our improvements on the campus. So in progress, we're just coming to the end of HVAC controls for the building we're in C. This was a scheduled maintenance project from state-funded money, in addition to some of the bond money may come to this, but the majority of this project was funded by state scheduled maintenance. The next project that's happening here in the C building is called a tenant improvements project. And this is a reconfiguration of 3 spaces on the building. We just started actually this week with some of the containments, and they're starting to work through. This project here will also, besides modernizing these 3 spaces, it will add 2 gender-neutral restrooms and pick up another men's restroom that had been decommissioned when they built the mailroom below us. So it will actually add some more accessibility to this building here for gender neutral and restrooms. Octagon Gym is another project that we kick-started with when we were working in through COVID. This project has finally come to fruition, and it's actually scheduled, we should be putting up the shade structures. It's scheduled to finish out in April. I think we've scheduled our
The CBOC is going to tour that facility in June at the start of their meeting.
And the Octagon Gym was giving the football team and athletics an additional area to simultaneously work out. And it's an outdoor, basically. It's a weightlifting, and it has various stations around it. So that's where that project is. We also kicked off this week, which is another scheduled
Can I
maintenance.
ask just,
Yes.
And I should probably wait to ask this, but
No, go
don't
for it.
forget, the scoreboard.
What would you like to know about the scoreboard?
So are there any plans to redo the scoreboard?
Not at this moment,
Okay, just,
but I'm sure you all will direct me with our plans to redo the scoreboard, and we'll get on that. I've just passed history on the scoreboard. I know we met and there were some challenges because of the funding and what it was. I think basically it becomes an advertising avenue, and therefore there was some things that was the previous VP of Business Services was trying to get through, because kinesiology went out and found a scoreboard company and was trying to put a deal together, and that would have brought in advertising as part of the package, and so they were trying to work through that.
we'll figure it out with the new vice president.
And then I'll execute it for you. Another project that just started was campus-wide exterior painting. This is also in support of the Centennial. So we started campus-wide, and they actually started on the C building, the backside of the C building. It's a robust schedule to finish the front of the campus for next year's, and they'll still be working on other areas in the campus, but it's about 300 plus day project, since there's quite a bit of hardscape and buildings on this campus.
Is that every building on campus, or so they're going to hit every building? Thank you.
There's a very complex phasing schedule, so I mean, what we're doing is focusing on the front of the campus, Muir-Pool, Sexton, C, D,
Yeah.
which I've been directed to kind of, this is where we're going to be showcasing. Then right across from the Galloway Plaza would be the brand new Serafian. So that's kind of the areas they're going to hit all first. So by the time we do the celebration, there still may be IT, B, ONP,
Sure.
and the parking lots may or may not, depend.
Yeah.
So they're going to work their way around Science Village at the very last.
Makes sense.
So.
Thank you.
Another project that's coming up that is part of, I guess what we would call interim housing is Annex 4 and 5 being converted into a new Veterans Resource Center until they are either housed in the new student services building or somewhere else on campus. Sexton 100-year celebration refresh. We're also just before getting out the RFP for that. We're going to be doing new seating or replacement of seating cushions, painting and flooring, getting it ready for the 100-year.
How much does Sexton refresh roughly cost?
We're probably in 2018 dollars, we were looking at about $250,000 on the seats, just the seats. We have a feeling, because we haven't gotten bids yet on that, we have a feeling that's going to be closer to 400. And then the painting, it's going to be the refresh. We're not getting completely into the project. I know that Theater Arts has done a good job of doing some of the lighting upgrades and some of the sound. So behind the stage, we're not touching any of that. This is purely on the audience side.
Thank you.
And it's basically cosmetic, nothing structural at this point, just cosmetic. So I think our original budget was more robust with maybe some ADA upgrades, like even possibly an elevator on the outside, although you can access from the elevator on the inside. And we were somewhere in the $2.5 million range. So, but I think we're going to be, that was a very robust plan. We still have some things to do with the ceiling tiles, but we're probably somewhere in $1 million to $1.5 million.
Thank you. Those seats need a
With the goal of being ready at graduation season next year.
Great.
Mirror pools, we are in back check. And we anticipate being out and being able to put that one on the street and get a contract in place by June, which puts us right on the cusp of our delivery for April of next year. Roofing phase 2, we're entering the pre-qualification process for bid and award. And then there's a couple other projects here that we're just very small things that we're working on. If there's a question on a specific one, just for time, I'll just let you lead me on that. If no questions.
Okay, so now we're at measure ECC contracts.
Yes, so if, yes, thank you, Alex. So on our board agenda for tomorrow, there's one measure PCC contract, which is a ratified. So this Converse Consultants is related to work that we're doing on the due diligence period with our escrow property in Rosemead. And so, we're required to do soil samples and things of that nature. And so this is work to support us exiting, getting all the documentation that's appropriate for us to release the contingencies in escrow.
It's wonderful to see how Rosemead is moving along. Knock on.
Okay, thank you. Meeting schedule, sounds like that's a little up in the air for this committee until the new board
Okay.
reconstitutes the committee.
Okay.
So,
welcome anytime.
yeah, so Rose,
Like
future
now,
agenda,
it's like-
is there any other future agenda items? I'm sitting here thinking like, what could we possibly do that he hasn't already talked about today in some level? Okay, so I think.
Well, sorry, actually,
Yeah.
this is not a next meeting or even next meeting. I think this is just in general. I think once Rosemead gets a little bit more clear, I think it'd be helpful. Even though we are doing, it's going to be part of the strategic plan refresh/update. I just think that having that idea, specifically thinking about Rosemead a little bit, would be helpful too. Since we are.
Yeah, let me know about that meeting.
Yeah.
I might still come to that
Will do.
one. Okay, I think we need a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye.